Hello, everybody. Hello. We are happy that you are today here with us on this Friday morning or day, depends on which time you are now is. And we are happy to start our webinar about the procurement and supply chain in wartime challenges and lessons. And today we have a very special guest. Dr. Muddassir Ahmed. Now he's connecting. We'll give him 1 minute to connect. And let's introduce my team today. Oksana Yakovenko will help me. And Maria Castilla, she's responsible for Iberian market. She is business development manager. And Muddassir Ahmed, now you are with us.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, we are fine. I'm Maryna Trepova, and I'm owner and the CEO of IPSM. This is consulting company in procurement and supply chain. Thank you, Muddassir, very much for accepting our invitation and to talk about this very important and sensitive at the same time topic, because now we are in time of total instability, uncertainty, and it looks like the war in almost all part of the world, unfortunately. But we need to continue our professional life, our professional duties, and this is the topic what we are going to talk about today.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
dear guests, I kindly ask you to write which country are you from now, that we know, and maybe highlight some topics connected to your country. But well, let's start. We will appreciate for your questions, for your comments, and we'll answer with Muddassir to your questions. So the first topic which I would like to talk with you, Muddassir, is the influence of current situation, current instability, which we have already from 2020, starting from the COVID time. So how supply chain now operates and works, and how it influences on their day-to-day activity.
Hello everyone, how are you? Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. And I think a great point of reflection between us is I think the first and maybe the first time we met when we have this beautiful conference in Ukraine, right? In 2019 or 18, it was
19,
19, right?
2019,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was in the beautiful summer, and the world was pretty normal, right, at that point in time, right? And it was as normal as it we know for a long amount of time, for our almost professional careers. And if you think from 2020 and until now, in last 5, 6 years, a lot of strange things have happened, which only happens in once in a lifetime, right? Starting with COVID, for example, a pandemic which
Mm-hmm.
happened once in 100 years. Then we have quite a few war. We have, unfortunate situation of Russia and Ukraine war, which has really resulted inflation in the world. All the changes in the fuels, not just in Europe, globally, and now we are facing this unnecessary issue of what happening in Middle East, Iran, and USA and Israel and all that. So it's crazy, right? But so here's the thing: we live, this term called this VUCA world, right? It's volatile, uncertain. We live in this VUCA world where the things are uncertain, they are volatile, right? And we need to somehow learn to survive it, right? And so this people use those terms. They call it resilient, right? So what does resilience mean? And they use this word agility. Almost they use it simultaneously as the same thing, but effectively they are not, right? So when we talk about the uncertain world which we live right now, so the only thing uncertain right now is your supply chain going to. Sorry, only thing certain right now is your supply chain situation will be uncertain, right? So to deal with uncertainty, you have to design your supply chain which is resilient. Resilient. So what does resilience mean? Meaning that to serve your customer, to ensure that your business continue to you make money, is you have to be ready for things are going wrong. Things are going wrong massively. Okay. And how are you going to come back fighting? Right. That's what simply resilience mean. Right. Agility is all about when the things are going in, your demand is going up, or maybe your supply customer expectation is going up. How are you going to serve them better and faster? And it just doesn't not mean reduction of lead time. It means communication as well. It means what kind of system process you're deploying, right? So the long and short answer of your, I think the starting point is, because we have a long webinar, is eh, this uncertainty will continue to go. We have to be ready for that. And there's a recent term we use right now, and which you can see the supply chains are very fragile, right? Transportation lead time is changing quite frequently. The prices are changing quite frequently. Oil is literally changing every day. We don't have a visibility of when the supply is going to ship. Visibility still is going to be an issue. So we need to design supply chain which is anti-fragile, right? So there's a word which I've been coming across right now is your supply chains are fragile. We know that. So how are you going to design supply chain which is fragile? So the last point before I give you my further is this. It's very surprising to me that most of the I work for a company like Eaton for 12 years and Bridgestone, or I do consultancy like yourself to a lot of small businesses and medium-sized businesses as well, especially in the supply chain strategy, sales and operations planning, and so on and so forth. All those businesses, the supply chain are just given, the design is just given. Nobody really take a step back and say, okay, so we have X amount of customer base near to our business, or maybe international. We have X amount of supplier base, maybe near to our business, or maybe offshore in long lead time, best cost countries. We have a partial manufacturing, and partially we import. So we have this make versus buy business scenario, or whatever. What is our best at design for supply chain, right? The only company I've seen it and done it successfully is Amazon. And look at Amazon, they are the world best supply chain company in the world right now. And maybe Zara, the case study, which is famous, or Toyota, who covered just in time lead time. So the point is, everybody's focused on supply relationship. There should be or demand forecasting. There should be or contract management. There should be, but the real discussion is at the C level. Are we looking at our supply chain design and thinking, do we have the right design to deal with this whole uncertain supply chain? So, what do you think?
Um, I think that you're absolutely right. And as you mentioned, we almost all time will have in nearest future, nearest years, uncertainty and instability, and we see it, and it is rather predictable. I always say, my colleagues, procurement and supply chain, that the time which the time of instability, wars, uh, some damages, maybe catastrophes. So this is the time when you may demonstrate your knowledge, your value, your power. Unfortunately, yes, the very calm and stable situation will not push you to change things, will not push you to redesign the processes, but instability will lead you to the front line and give the opportunity to perform and demonstrate the real value for the business. So, but it's not only occasionally. You need to work. You need to change. You need to be prepared, and you need to have the different plans, Plan B, Plan C, to help and business and to be with business, help business perform and provide clients with goods and services as well. So I absolutely agree with you. And what I can see from experience and from my colleagues in Ukraine, that we now try to continue business. We try to continue supply to our customers, to produce. So factories didn't stop, the businesses didn't close, and yes, the situation pushed us to revise the strategy, to revise the design of the business, not once per year, once per 2 years, for example, as we did in previously, but every 3 months. And I think that this is one of the main lesson and one of the main conclusion which we can make having 4 years of war and working all these years. For example, we redesigned and changed our strategy in previous year 3 times. So 3 times IPSM changed the strategy, and it's normal because the time giving us this information and these challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So I think if I want to pick a very specific situation, let's take what a week I call it wartime planning, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you are facing this situation when you are into, war times, where you start, right? The every businesses have, or most businesses have this, they call it business continuity planning, right? Or, they've
Mm-hmm.
got, okay. But is your business continuity planning is just maybe a file which was written 5 years ago and is sitting somewhere and nobody's looking at it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be honest, I've not seen any business continuity planning module, a book or maybe a document where they're talking about, oh, if the war happens, this will happen, right? Nobody plan about war, right? But
Mm-hmm.
this actually happening as we speak. So when we talk about boardroom planning, that means we are looking at, what kind of resources we have. Do we have all the right
Mm-hmm.
people in the right place? Do we have all the usual activity, that we have any risk in people coming to work, so on and so forth, right? And then you, I think, start looking at the overall structure, meaning, okay, where we have the biggest risk of sourcing. Do we have a single source or can we get parts
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else? So I have a customer here in Saudi, right? Right now is
Mm-hmm.
one of my biggest customer named Al Rashid. They are a big distributor of good air, $100 billion company. So as you know, the Strait of Hormuz, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
stopping from Saudi, the Dammam airport. So the Dammam port. So the Dammam port is the biggest port, and
Mm-hmm.
especially for oil and gas, and all the big container ship companies goes there. So it's not about just oil. Okay, of course, the Dammam in Saudi is the biggest export hub for Aramco, the biggest company of oil and
Mm-hmm.
gas company in the world. But it's also the biggest import port terminal for most of these Saudi companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Dammam stopped. So they have to come with, and they have imports from Thailand and they have imports from Europe as well. So few things immediately changes.
Mm-hmm.
They have to pay. So the usual 20-foot container, 40-foot container, let's call it, cost them $1,800, the normal price before that, like until January.
Mm-hmm.
Now, every container, they have a surcharge of $3,000. So really, price has gone up massively. Okay. Then the lead time has gone up, right? Okay. And then certain European countries are not able to ship them, so they have to change the single source. Okay. So in just by one event, suddenly over weeks, the whole supply chain is gone out of the window. So they have to come up
Yeah.
with the plan of
Mm-hmm.
which other factories can make them, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
graphic, where the graphical geographic concentration is, how they're gonna have a visibility, what are the lead time changes. So if there is any lead time
Mm-hmm.
changes, what inventory they have to update. So this is
Mm-hmm.
all just upstream changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now they have, but then they're also looking into what's happening downstream, meaning
Mm-hmm.
how they're
Mm-hmm.
going to communicate to the customers, which customers will be out of stock, which models will
Mm-hmm.
be all out of stock, how much safety stock there may be last, and so on and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
all the good planning they have in terms of expansion and all that is basically gone out of the window. In this scenario, actually, the strange part is they can't do this whole let's do near shoring or local supply chain because they are actually a distributor, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they have to buy tires from the Goodyear factories wherever they are in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in this scenario, what they do, they sit there and basically find a way or a different routes, which cost them a lot more money to continue to work, and therefore the customers are paying a price. They are they are paying the price as well. So, but they can't just basically sit into and just do one thing, right? So if there is any geopolitical event, you also have to do a severity assessment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the idea of the severity assessment is, right, okay, how much of my business is local, right? Or let's call it
Mm-hmm.
active suppliers. How much of them which has the change of the lead time, right? And how much of
Mm-hmm.
them are totally disrupted. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
within your risk, not everything is bad, right? Right. So you just need to
Mm-hmm.
identify which part of your supply chain, we call it risk priority RPN, right? Risk priority number. It's the theory come from quality management,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
you decide between, let's call it yellow, orange, and red, and then you
Mm-hmm.
decide which one are escalating, and then
Mm-hmm.
which ones are actually uh, fixing over time, right? So what are
Mm-hmm.
the triggers, what action I'm taking, and who is solving? And we use this approach with them, and
Mm-hmm.
we did manage to solve, let's call it, 40-50% of the immediate supply issue. Let me give you one example. So,
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
example, the Goodyear was unable to ship from Europe to the Dammam. However, they were already have some other Chinese brands, right? Ling Long and all
Mm-hmm.
that. So, but the Chinese brand was like 10 to 20% of the business at this point. But Chinese was shipping through Strait of Hormuz as well, and actually they shipped to Jeddah, and its lead times are shorter. So they did manage to serve the market still with the Chinese
Mm-hmm.
tires. So, as we says, every crisis bring opportunity. So that's probably the greatest opportunity for the Chinese suppliers to flood the market in Saudi. So, but the whole thing was started is what I call this a severity assessment, right? If you just say everything is bad, right, then you're not going to fix anything. So you have to pick the elements of your supply chain, or let's call it channels of your supply chain, which serving different sales channels, and identify which channel is less, least affected, which is most affected, and which one is, let's call it, intermediately affected in between, right? And then you can come up with your wartime
Mm-hmm.
response actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good example. And this severe test, it's such kind of crash test, which
Yes.
which yeah, automotive producer practice to guarantee us the security of the cars. And business continuous plan. So, what do you recommend when it should be developed? Because I know the cases from Ukraine when some organizations they developed this plan in advance before the full invasion because they try to be prepared, try to have everything is in place, and don't be surprised with invasion. And even if it would be not happen, so they had this plan and be prepared and be more quiet, I would say. And I know many companies, many businesses which were not prepared and act already looking at the situation, and they lost a lot, of course, because we were they were they were didn't prepare they didn't prepare any processes, they didn't prepare staff, people, etc., etc. So when it should be developed, and what do you recommend?
So when it should be developed is as soon as you can,
Hmm.
right? So that's there. One thing we talked about already, which is the wartime, severity assessment, right? So when the
Hmm.
geopolitical event happened, what are the activities which is really into red zone, meaning it will really gonna stop doing your business and you got no choice but to fight back, right? But then I would also look into, let's call it, wartime sourcing plan and production plan, right?
Yeah.
If you're in the production business, you might say, okay, do I have all the machines? Do I have all the people, process, and systems in place to run it, and will I get my suppliers, right? So again, it comes down to the supplier evaluation, right? So where is my supplier base? What is my geopolitical? The first point is, what is my geopolitical exposure, right? Are they local? How much I'm importing? If I have attack from, Russia or Israel or wherever, then how I'm going to get my parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then what would be my unit cost impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I get my substitution locally, right? And substitution, it sounds easy, but it's not easy, because if you are into manufacturing business, then if you are buying certain parts, they need to be approved by engineering team or design team, so you can fit in to get the required product quality. Or what does product quality mean? Simply fit for purpose, right? And then you can also say what will be my cost of transportation, right? So that would be all inbound stuff. So you almost have to imagine those wartime scenarios and come up with your, let's call it, sourcing decision framework,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So now one thing is sourcing decision framework. Secondly is your manufacturing wartime framework. Okay, what we have to do if war happens, how we can get the product to a customer. Now, so
Mm-hmm.
sourcing is sorted, manufacturing sorted. Now you move to the distribution side, right, which is the supplying to the customer. So what will just happen? Loss of product, right? That you have literally no product to supply to customer. How long your customers can wait,
Mm-hmm.
right? Literally. Or if you have a scarcity of supply, how essential your product is, that they will wait and they pay you more uh, because they must need a product. So you have to define, if you're just in the commodity business, then you can lose the customer and it will go to a competition if they somehow have inventory and you don't, right? First thing. Second thing, you have to take care about, okay, what will be my customer service penalties? For example, if you're into automotive manufacturing or into OEM manufacturing, if you don't supply your parts on time, then you're screwed, because there's a massive penalties from the big brands and OEMs. Okay. Uh, then what will happen is, on a downstream, on a distribution, what will be the premium cost you have to pay, right?
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, how much inventory buffers you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is, for me, is my favorite topic, inventory buffers, because inventory buffers comes in various shapes and sizes, right? So even though you might be buying a sub-assembly, or let's call it sub-assembly raw material, from China or Romania or wherever, right? But what you could do is, for wartime planning, you could just store raw material somewhere, and maybe you can do some assembly locally. You don't have to import it, right? So the whole point of this example is, you look into your sourcing strategy, you look into manufacturing strategy, and really go through the framework of, okay, impact on cost, impact on lead time, impact on my geopolitical exposure, what will be happening with my distribution cost, what will be happening with my import cost. But I don't see a lot of these contingency planning documents which have that kind of detail. It's just high level written. Sorry for my language, ladies. If shit happens, we're gonna do that, right? Okay, but that doesn't work when actually shit actually happens, right? That you have to
Yeah.
have a really detailed plan of suppliers, your end customers, what transportation engines you're gonna use, what port you're gonna import. Like, it has to be detailed.
Yes, I absolutely. Unfortunately, I need to agree with you. I also didn't see many cases. We have very successful case with the National Bank of Ukraine. So they started preparation from autumn 2021, and they put description of all processes in this business continuous plan, and it was the key successful factor for them why they didn't collapse in the beginning of the war, and they worked as a clock. So everything worked. They provide full supply for the bank. So bank worked. They have the substitution of the process, substitution for of suppliers, etc., etc. And yes, unfortunately, And as well, I have them not very successful case. One of very big public company in Ukraine. So they started to implement category management in procurement, and sourcing strategy and continuous business plan should be part of category management. And they developed very good strategies, so very nice presentations. But they developed for the so-called peaceful time, and they didn't think about the option B, option C scenario, different scenarios, etc. And they realized in the beginning of the war in 2020 that the category strategy didn't work. And surprise, surprise, why? Why it didn't work? Because they didn't have this business continuous plan. And they said me, do you know that category management doesn't work? I said, why? Because we cannot implement it during wartime. But my answer was, why you didn't think about it in advance? So yes, you're absolutely right, and this BCP should be in place. And if you don't have it, so you need to put it or start to develop it, because we don't know, the time is real very uncertain, and we don't know what we'll have in the future. Okay, how do you see the difference between small, middle business and big companies? So how they react from your experience in this, and how they react in these different situations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's comes down to the resources and the infrastructure, right? Big companies have multiple manufacturing resources, supply resources, support structure. They do manage to find a way to survive and serve their existing market from the different
Mm-hmm,
sourcing. I mean, like for example, I can talk about Bridgestone when I was there. Our supply base was very much concentrated in Japan and Thailand and Indonesia, like Asian countries, but Europe also there for at least for Middle East market in COVID days. But when COVID happens, there was, supply issues from Japan and also from Thailand. Then we were forced to basically get supplies from Europe, which was easier for whatever reason, because
mm-hmm,
there's Poland, Bridgestone have a
mm-hmm,
massive factory in Poznan, right? In Poznan, they have a factory
mm-hmm,
which they spent almost some semi-automatic $300 million factory. So they did manage to supply from that factory, right? So big companies can do that. If you are a small and medium enterprise with a local distributor, buying stuff from few suppliers and distributing, let's assume you are supplying PPEs, personal care, safety equipment. And if you are into wartime zone and you can't get enough suppliers, or you're getting is very expensive, it's cost you every money, it could it could it could be detrimental enough that you will not survive, right? You might have to shut down the business, and it happens in COVID times. In fact, happening in the war times right now. My client actually, true story, everything was fine until the until the war started. I think the first
mm-hmm,
10 days we engaged, and they told me, I think last month, third week of March, sorry, we have a cash flow issues and we are not getting enough suppliers.
mm-hmm,
At this moment, we are fighting for our lives and our customers, and we are not going to continue with you with the consulting activities. Because my job was I was looking into the whole logistics structure and putting in place how to, all the things which we do for logistics optimization, like KPIs. In warehouse, we put the location mapping. We start using electronic proof of delivery. We start doing visibility stuff. We were doing really, really good stuff, and improving their logistics processes and systems. And they stopped it. So I had a call with the client again 3 days ago. He said, "Yeah, I think there's a brief ceasefire, but we are not really sure. We cash flows are tight, and we will talk again in May." Right. So they're not saying no. They are not small companies. Actually, think about it. They have $100 million sales. I mean, $100 million is a lot of
Yeah.
money, right?
Yeah.
Right. And they're still saying, oh, we are not sure we want to work with you until the war stops.
Yes, we had the same situation, by the way, in 2022. So the first months of the war, all clients stop all activities, consulting, education, etc., etc. They concentrated on the question of survival and concentrated on saving people, helping suppliers as well, security topics, and uh, reorganizing their processes and activities to the new reality. And our clients back to us in May, June. So we renovate our activities. And also we had a very successful case when we supported our client during all year 2022. So then we outsource the procurement department, and we help them to provide supply chain and provide procurement. So we were together with them all that year, and with our help, not only with our help, but our help and our involvement helped them to continue and didn't stop their business activity. Yes, it's very important. And um, if we back to the topic, by the way, but the topic where to start the this BCP and where to start to do anything to be prepared. So the first you need to think about your suppliers, as you mentioned. So suppliers in this situation is key success factor for your activity. So you need to start with your suppliers to understand who are the key suppliers, to understand who is critical and strategic in your portfolio, and build the strategy and build this BCP for your business, especially for manufacturing.
I have actually a question for you because you are a real expert when it comes to procurement. I'm more a supply chain logistics and strategy and
Yeah.
digitalization guy, right? And you are, because I mean, we are super proud to collaborate with you. You created 9 courses for SCM Dojo. So anybody who's listening to this, I can see 18 people on the call right now. Go and check out Maryna's courses on SCM Dojo. They are fantastic. They have a great feedback. So you are, I think, one of the best procurement expert I know. So I have a question for you. So when this happens, and in the wartime or any critical risk situation, what should be the supply relationship strategies, right? Because just generally this relationship between buyers and suppliers are very not friendly. I'm not saying they are fighting with each other, but they are certainly not transparent. Okay, they don't tell how much inventory they're carrying. They don't tell what's their manufacturing lead time clearly. They don't want to negotiate on why your MOQ is so big. They don't tell it. Basically, it is what it is. Take it or leave it, right? And I know as your LinkedIn, I write quite a bit that our procurement guys are only focused on get me the best price, but that's just one thing they're focused on because they want to claim their cost saving. But the implication of it's not that simple because you have to think about the whole supply chain, total cost,
Yep.
total cost of supply chain, right? What is the impact of the higher MOQ? What is the impact of the full container if you're forcing? What is the impact of the total lead time? So when war happens, these factors become really important, the planning factors, if you want to call it. So
Yeah.
my question to you is, I know I have a long question, how you manage relationship in this wartime?
So we need to divide the first months of the war and then the next period, because the first months were very dramatic and very difficult. And that period, what was the most important for all procurement with whom I contacted, with whom I spoke. So the first is the connection and calls to key suppliers, and to ask what is the situation in their company, are they alive, if they not destroyed, or what are their plans, and if you didn't do it in advance before the beginning of the war. The next question is security of people. So the security of staff, of your staff, and security of staff of your suppliers. So the key issue, the business cannot exist, cannot work without people. So safety and security, if it was necessary. So the business companies, they helped. Oops, Sana, can you? Yes, thank you. The companies, they helped suppliers as well to evacuate people, to evacuate their families, etc. So it was the one goal, safety and security. The second, to understand how operate, and to supply to the, for example, factory or manufacturing. Just don't stop the production. I have colleagues from FMCG, for example, milk production, bread production, other food production. So they just couldn't stop because they need to produce and feed people in Ukraine. We don't talk about export. We don't talk of the first months about anything, but just to feed. And it was such part of our obligation to the community and to society. So they bought for any price, just to bought and to supply to the factory. And the prices were very, very high. So nobody talked about savings. And I know that the prices were so high that now some auditing in public and commercial companies, so they now ask, why did you buy so expensive? Come on, what? There were nothing absolutely. We need just to supply and just to guarantee that the factory will continue the production. Yes, and so it was the most important. After the first months, already we understand that all my colleagues, they understood that we need to change the process. We need to change our procedures, etc., etc. But now it looks like many things, many processes back to such kind of normality. But it's not normal absolutely. But we work, so business work. But what I have from my colleagues, they said that these years they faced with such issues and such problems which they never deal before.
For example?
And yes, and it happens every day. For example, we have contract with suppliers, and that night bomb get to the factory of the supplier. And for example, we have now situation with men's mobilization to the army. So our supplier had qualified staff to perform to for example for production or to provide services, and the next day, tomorrow, so he is already mobilized to the army, and we cannot provide customer with the services. And I talk with my colleagues, and it happens almost not every day, but very often. And what happened, of course, the easiest to say, okay, we will not work to you, we will change suppliers. But all suppliers now have the same problems. All companies face the same problems. And here the real supplier relationship management should works. And in this situation, procurement, of course, they try to save money, they try to buy for the best price, etc. But they build this relationship with suppliers and understand how we can deal all together in these critical situations. This is the most challenging factor for and most challenging task for procurement in Ukraine.
No, no, that that makes sense. Totally makes sense. I want to add one more point before we move to
Q&A.
the Q&A, right? And I want to call this concept called the true cost of disruption of
Mm-hmm,
for your suppliers, right?
mm-hmm,
So if you look into the areas where the total cost of disruption is, so you think about it, you're creating a metric, right? You're creating a KPI.
mm-hmm,
So what is your direct loss? Right? That means how many direct supply loss, meaning how many days you will be without any supply, right? How in
mm-hmm,
how many days you're going to deplete your safety stock, right? And
mm-hmm,
what is your inventory carrying cost? That means how much money you have to spend into expedite the logistics, and or if you have a production
mm-hmm,
shortages, what will be the cost of that? And if you have to do the quality rework, for example, how much you of because you might have sitting the old inventory and you want to do rework, and how much is gonna
mm-hmm,
cost you doing that, right? So that's
mm-hmm,
fourth.
mm-hmm.
Then what would be the impact from the revenue loss, right? What will be the
Yeah.
penalties if there's any, and if you lose a margin, what margins you will lose, right?
Mm-hmm,
And if you have to do the emergency sourcing, which you can in this scenario, what would be the more cost of this, right? So if you starting from one of them, critical map of the lead
mm-hmm,
time, for example, so you can do a simple maths, right? So you can say annual spend with the supplier is 5 million, right? Which is equivalent to 13.6 million thousand dollars per day. And
mm-hmm.
this contributes to 35% of my, let's call it, manufacturing or product contribution margin. And so if you are losing basically, what's your daily supply risk, right? So is about
Mm-hmm.
$4,500, right? So if you lose a
Mm-hmm.
supplier for 14 days, then you're almost losing $67,000, right? So
Yeah.
you should start putting that disruption into a money sign, because once you do that, then everybody would start paying attention that how important that supply is, because maybe your suppliers in your category strategy, because the spend is low, or the frequency is low, maybe in not top 50% of your supplier, but it's critical to for your manufacturing, right? And if you know that supplier won't supply on time, then you won't be able to, you're gonna start losing production. It's gonna cost a lot of money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So few things you also to start calculating is what is the impact of the production going to stop, right? So how much is going to cost you if the line is shut down? What revenue you will lose, right? What contribution margin you will lose, you know. So you should calculate that as well. Then you also calculate is if you have to do any rework or quality, warranties, and how much it's going to cost you. But most importantly, if you're just doing the spot sourcing or spot buying, emergency sourcing, how much extra it will cost. So you put all these number together and come up with, let's call it, total cost of disruption model, right? And that will tell you, in fact, once you have that number would be a good enough number to say, okay, we know this could happen. It could cost us let's call it $4.5 billion going forward. Why don't then we do one thing. Then after that, what we should do is we call it, I would call it a probability analysis of risk qualification. So you can say, if this happens, as you said in the example of war, Russia, Ukraine, or Israel and Iran and all that,
Mm-hmm.
what will happen to my sources? Uh, how many ports will be shut down? What is my geopolitical risk? So you basically do some probability analysis. And then based on this probability, you say, okay, there's a high chance is if you take this, situation of Middle East, the Strait of Hormuz will be shut down. Then I have to buy fuel from somebody else. I do not have the sources available from other sources. Let's invest some money. Let's do some dual sourcing, right? Or let's have some safety stock built already. Maybe this will happen. So So you start comparing cost of building an alternative supply chain for the wartime versus the cost it will happen if the war happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can have a very good idea of how to start doing the disruption mapping.
The figures give clearance. Very good, very good for us. Yes, absolutely right. Dear guests, please ask your questions. So we are ready to answer your questions. Before we start to answer the questions, I want to share the information about the potential opportunity in Ukraine, because all wars finish somewhere, and we will have the peacetime. And so the Ukraine potential numbers of recovery and reconstruction in Ukraine here is 500 billions. And
Wow.
we are expecting, yeah, and we are expecting minimum 5% GDP growth. And it means that the opportunity for procurement and supply chains in Ukraine, and not only in Ukraine, for such projects are huge.
Hmm.
And yes, a lot of preparation now we see to work with these projects. So they are mainly concentrated on military technology, fast-growing country. Also, we have agriculture capacities, a huge destroyed infrastructure, energy infrastructure, road infrastructure, ports, etc. So, transport infrastructure, destroyed housing. So, a lot opportunities to build, to renovate, and to make business in Ukraine. And we are in Ukraine. We know this market very well. So we work with these difficulties, challenges, opportunities in Ukraine, and we propose such service, your procurement agent in Ukraine, so we can be your hands, eyes, and ears in Ukraine, and really help you to manage procurement and supply during these reconstruction projects, but not only for them. And continue your recommendations. So from my side, key lessons learning from our experience. Unfortunately, this experience, we didn't want it, but we had it. So the first to build real SRM, as I already mentioned. So supplier relationship management should be in place, and worked and developed and worked for different times. Business continuous plan, already mentioned, be proactive. So it means not just wait that something happen and you have requests from top management to change, to revise, to redesign, but be proactive. Don't wait for the instructions or some directives. So our experience shows that if you see the problem and it is urgent and you need to act, and involve the team, involve those who is responsible for different functions, different departments, and solve the problem, help people, help to save some production facilities, etc., etc. This is the most important when it happens. Manage risks. You, Muddassir, said very good about it. To continue to calculate different costs, to calculate how it could be managed, different scenarios. Discover everything connected to the category, to the suppliers. Geopolitics, unfortunately, we need to include in this analysis and in this calculation. You need to have different plans, implement category management, but it should be adaptive, resilient, and have the different scenarios and for implementation in different situations. Yes, and teamwork helps to deal with many problems.
The
So
only the only thing I would add here is
yeah.
I think you almost have everything written here. What we discussed from the start. I think I would just add this total cost of disruption calculation.
Oh, yeah, I will add it. Yeah, I will
Yeah,
add
so
it.
if you just add as number 10 total cost of disruption calculation for your supplier, I think that would
Hmm.
give a really nice KPI or a measure because people
Yeah.
don't want to invest, right? And unless you show them the bad picture and say, okay, if you do not invest, that's the risk you're taking, right? So I might write a blog on this as well. I'll share with you.
Yes, and I would add here the metrics. So as you mentioned, metrics to measure, are you
Yeah,
in this scenario and are you in the budget
yeah,
of this scenario? Yeah, absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We will add it.
that's a good slide.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. We will send this presentation to our participants, and we have here quite insightful session. How do you deal with the issue of supply have full visibility on their costs? May I start answering this question, Muddassir, okay?
yeah,
Yeah. So, as I mentioned in the beginning of the war, we really cannot manage the price, and procurement in Ukraine should buy for the price which they can buy, just to buy what they have on the market. That's all. And there were no visibility of costs. There were nothing which we can manage. If we could found for example, any goods, materials on the market, my colleagues just bought it. You bought it because you need to guarantee supply. You need to guarantee that your production line would not stop. Then when it was stabilized somehow, then you start back to your practice and start to negotiate the cost structure of cost, etc. But the first weeks, the first 2 months is they just bought what they can get on the market in Ukraine or from abroad, because what we faced during these years, that many companies, they were ready to supply until the border of Ukraine, and then we should organize supply by ourselves. So to the border, and then we need to reorganize logistics. So logistics changed dramatically during the last 4 years. Okay. Muddassir, maybe you may add something.
no, I think you covered most of the answers, and if I think I always used to say to people, if I have to take a, let's call it grief from my boss or my customer, and I have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
KPIs to manage. I have to manage cost, I have to manage
Mm-hmm.
quality, I have to manage service and deliverability, I have to manage people engagement topics. So I've got a lot of KPIs to manage as a supply chain leader. But one thing I've learned is one KPI you cannot compromise, which is your on-time delivery or your customer service.
Yeah.
Because customer service always comes first, which is, are you supplying on time? Are you supplying reliability with a good quality? Because if you do not supply, right, if you do not take a hit, maybe on cost, if you have to take a hit, you should take a hit, then you lose a customer. And if you lose a customer, then cost really doesn't really matter, is it? Because I remember a very early part of my career, right? I remember it was, I think, 2006 and 7. So I was just doing a role of a buyer, right? And we were manufacturing in UK, and then we ended up buying a similar, maybe similar product cheap from China, but the product marketing people said, oh, let's launch it from a different brand. So because we do not want to dilute made in UK, which was a good idea. There was just simple switches. Now, what happened was I remember placing an order of 1.5 million pound. It was a lot of money 20 years ago, right? 1.5 million pound, big PO. Never, I actually never remember placing a bigger PO in my life, right? Place that PO, product arrived, and we have a 3 months of inventory because the lead time was long, and we sold nothing. Literally, maybe I don't know, 20,000 pounds of stuff in first for 4 months. And, and our procurement people was claiming, oh, we saved 500,000, we saved like 200,000 pounds for the business. She said, you know, you have not saved anything. You haven't said shit because we haven't sold any. To save money, you have to sell. If you're not selling, you're not saving anything. You're just increases the inventory cost for me. And that was such a basic and simple example that why our procurement supply chain people get so much focused on pricing and don't think about the business, the simple business aspect that the product needs to be shipped. Customer has to
Yes.
buy to see any impact of the work you are doing. So for me, customer service always come first, price comes second. I know you guys might disagree with me, but that's my view.
Yeah, perfect. And this is you are going to the last question. Given the cheapest supply chain is often the most fragile during wartime,
Yeah.
how are procurement professionals currently rebalancing your procurement KPIs to equally weight resilience against the cost? So your
Yeah.
answer was brilliant.
Yeah. I would also say one thing, Godfrey, is so I was recently challenging few experts and myself. So I see there's a triangle, right? Of the triangle
Yeah,
of agility, resilience, and cost. And it's
yeah,
almost like when people say quality, price, or delivery, and people say you can get a high quality fast, but it won't be cheap, right?
yeah.
You can get a good quality at low price, but it won't be fast. Same
Yes,
thing with
the
the
classical, yeah, classical triangle. Yeah.
triangle. Like so for me, agility, cost, and sorry, agility, cost, and resilience is the same thing. You can't have a supply chain which is the best cost and resilient and agility. It's just not possible. It's just simply not possible. So if you are looking for resilient and agile, you have to spend money, right? So similarly, if you
Mm-hmm.
want resilient and low cost, then you cannot have agile supply chain. If you have a low cost and agile supply chain, then it won't be resilient, as you said. It will be fragile,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yes,
got to you
absolutely.
got to pick, my friend.
Yes, absolutely right. Just to calculate the losses in the sales, and you will understand how to build your supply chain and your procurement activities. Dear friends, thank you very much for your questions and for participant of this webinar. Thank you very much for being with us. Muddassir, thanks a lot for your insight and for your questions. It was really very, very good to talk with you. And I hope that our recommendations will help colleagues.
No, thank you for organizing this. Thank you for all the folks for joining on this Friday morning, afternoon, where they are. It's been a long time we talk to each other, and I always appreciate our friendship, partnership, and collaboration. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a good weekend and peaceful weekend.
Ciao. Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye 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 bye.